Hello and a warm welcome to Federal Special Program Capital Beat. Prime Minister of India, Mr. Narendra Modi, inaugurated the new Parliament building and he made an impassioned speech saying that this new edifice will give energy and strength to the largest democracy in the world. He also said that it's the resolution of the 140 crore Indians which will consecrate the new Parliament. Now, the question which everybody is asking is that, of course, the new building is in place, but what happens to the ethos, the culture, the spirit of the parliamentary democracy? We all know that the President of India was not part of this inauguration ceremony, and opposition, the academicians, everyone said that this is completely sidelining the Constitution and it is a disrespect towards this holy Bible of the country. I'm joined by a very special person, Sudheendra Kulkarni, who's worked very closely with L.K. Advani and Mr. Atal Bihari Vajpayee. He's a political commentator, author, and writer. So it's so wonderful to have you today for the Federal. And I read your beautiful article which you wrote, and I was just wondering that this would be an apt moment to talk to you. What are your real feelings? You know, once you must have seen the inauguration ceremony yesterday. What are the thoughts which come to your mind, really, sir, at the start?
Dhanyavad, Niluji. Gives me great pleasure to join your discussion. It's one of those channels that provides a platform for noiseless and at the same time very meaningful debates in the digital media. Yesterday's function was truly momentous. India now has a new parliament building. The old parliament, which was built during the British Raj, was said to be inadequate for the purposes of accommodating the larger number of members of parliament in view of the changes that will come about in 2026. With the growth of population, our size of parliament was going to increase, and therefore it was more or less the consensus of political parties that we should have a new building. A new building was built, inaugurated, but all the optics and all the messaging that went along with it were deeply disappointing, to say the least. Parliament is a product of the Indian Constitution. India adopted parliamentary democracy in 1950. And the Constitution of India very clearly states that the Parliament shall include the President, the Lok Sabha, and the Rajya Sabha. Which means the president, the office of the president, office of Rashtrapati is integral to and inseparable from Parliament of India. And yet, the Parliament, the inauguration of new building of Parliament, Rashtrapati is gayab. Uparashtrapati, who also happens to be the chairperson of the Rajya Sabha, is also invisible. So the two most important constitutional offices, personalities, are absent at the time when a new parliament building is being inaugurated. And who inaugurates it? The Prime Minister. The Prime Minister, in the order of precedence or the official protocol, he comes after the President and the Vice President. In all official ceremonies, the Prime Minister comes third. And yet, the Prime Minister took the decision of personalizing the inauguration of new parliament to the exclusion of Rashtrapati and Uparashtrapati. Now, we should see this in the context of what Prime Minister Narendra Modi himself has been saying again and again and again after he became Prime Minister in 2014. He said not once by several times, that for him, the Constitution of India is a Dharma Granth. He also said that it is the only scripture for my government. So he has already elevated the Constitution to a Dharma Granth, and a Dharma Granth has to be followed under all circumstances. Now, after having said this, what respect is he showing to the Constitution? So the opposition, therefore, was absolutely right in raising this important issue. Now, I would like to mention here, Neeluji, that when on December 10th, 2020, the Bhumi Pujan for the new building took place, again, something similar happened, and I had written an article.
Right.
At the Bhumi Pujan, the then president, Ramnath Kovind, was not invited. The then vice president, Venkaiah Naidu, was not invited. Now, before the election of Ramnath Kovind, the same ruling party, the Bharatiya Janata Party, made a big case that they are going to elect a Dalit president. But they did not give him even the constitutional recognition at the time of laying the foundation stone for the new building. Something similar happened again yesterday. The incumbent president of India, Draupadi Murmuji, and you will recall that when she was made president last year, again the BJP said we are making a tribal and a tribal woman at that, president of India. Did she get the honor and the recognition that she deserved under the constitution yesterday? Jagdeep Dhankardji, the vice president of India, was absent. Is parliament only the Lok Sabha? Only the speaker of the Lok Sabha was present. Where was the presiding officer of the Rajya Sabha? So these are all the strange things that happened behind the swankiness of the new building and all the rest of the tamasha that went on yesterday, about which I'll talk later.
Right.
We cannot hide the fact, or we cannot ignore the fact that there is a big difference between form and substance, between propaganda and reality. And the reality is that Parliament of India has been equated only with one person, Narendra Modi. We have, as if we have entered into an era of one nation, one party, one leader.
Those are very strong statements coming to you, Mr. Kulkarni. But what I have failed to realize in the last 2-3 days, since the time I have been doing panel discussions, talking to people, and even the BJP spokespersons who've joined on my show, they have completely, tried to sideline this question as to why the president of India was not invited. Why do you think that this thing about which you and me are talking, or the academicians, the opposition is raising, this thing doesn't disturb Prime Minister Narendra Modi? Why is it so?
I can say very confidently, having worked closely with a former Prime Minister, a distinguished Prime Minister, a widely respected and loved Prime Minister, Atal Bihari Vajpayee, who also belonged to the BJP. I was in his Prime Minister's office. If this event was to take place with Vajpayee as Prime Minister, there certainly wouldn't have been this disrespect for the Constitution. He would have made it a point to invite whosoever was the president at the time. Not just Vajpayee, any Prime Minister from 1947 onwards would have done the same. I can also say that, let's say Pranab Mukherjee was the president of India today. Would he have accepted this humiliation?
Absolutely.
Would Rajendra Prasad, our first Prime Minister, have accepted this humiliation? Dr. S. Radhakrishnan, the eminent educationist, the second president of India, would he have kept quiet? Only now it is happening. And why is it happening now? Because now we have a prime minister. There's only one word to describe it. The best description is in Hindi, Atma Mugdha. इतने आत्ममुग्ध प्रधानमंत्री हमने कभी नहीं देखा. Self-obsessed. He wants the focus all the time only on himself. So as he entered the new parliamentary building, how was he welcomed? Modi, Modi, Modi. As if this was one of those stadium, episodes that happened in, let's say, in Sydney recently, or in America or England earlier.
True.
Where supporters chant his name, Modi, Modi. Is that how it should be done in a solemn occasion, on a solemn occasion, like opening of a new parliament building? Does parliament belong only to him? Is it only about him? But he wants it that way. And that's why it happens. And that's why even sane people in the BJP would not answer the questions that you are raising.
Mr. Kulkarni, you raised a valid point when you said that had President, the former President Pranab Mukherjee been alive, would he have accepted? Would Dr. Rajendra Prasad have accepted? So that brings me to the question that should Draupadi Murmu have raised this issue? Or should the Vice President not have raised this issue? What about them?
It's a very good question. Now let me begin with Vice President Jagdeep Dhankar. Ever since he's become Vice President, you all know that he's been extremely outspoken. Perhaps we've never had such an outspoken Vice President as now. For such an outspoken person, who even goes to the extent of questioning the need for the basic structure of the Constitution. For him to keep quiet now, he has to answer. Draupadi Murmu, she's in fact the president. She has all the powers. She can question the government of the day on any issue she wants. Why has she kept quiet?
But if your prime minister forgets the rajdharma, and I'm using this word because former Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee also used this word rajdharma, and if your present prime minister has forgotten his rajdharma, shouldn't the president and the vice president bring him back to the table and remind him that, look, this is your duty, and if you have forgotten, we are still there?
We all know that the incumbent president and the incumbent vice president will not do it. We should not expect it from them. But at least, since you have mentioned the word Rajdharma, Niluji, at least the Prime Minister of India should heed the advice of the one person who is still regarded as the ideological guru of the Bharatiya Janata Party. You mentioned Vajpayee ji, and Vajpayee ji's advice of Rajdharma is one thing, but there is yet another personality. That is Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay, if you see the constitution of the BJP, his name is taken with great reverence, and his philosophical treatise, Integral Humanism, is regarded as the ideological guide of the BJP and earlier of the Bharatiya Janata Sangh. Now, what does Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay say about Rajdharma and also Rajdand? Because yesterday there was also another side show.
I was actually coming to that.
Yeah.
Yes. Go ahead.
The so-called discovery of Sengol.
Right.
I don't think that even the 99.9% of the BJP leaders hadn't heard of the name Sengol a week ago. Suddenly the Sengol appears, and even that is used to malign Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru. And it is given a great ceremonial honor yesterday by none other than the Prime Minister of India, who goes prostrate before the Rajdhan. But this Rajdhan, which is a symbol of Rajyabhishek, transfer of power from one king to another at the time of coronation. Now, what does Rajdhan say, and what does Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay have to say on this? Let me, for the benefit of your viewers, I must bring out this something that most people don't know. You know, I have with me, Neeluji, Integral Humanism by Deen Dayal Upadhyay. And I would like especially those who support the BJP to listen very carefully. आपने राजधर्म की बात कही, तो पहले दीनदयाल उपाध्याय जी धर्म क्या है बताते हैं. He explains what dharma means. Dharma means innate law. I'm going to read out the relevant passage. The fundamental law of human nature is the standard for deciding the propriety of behavior in various situations. We have termed this very law as dharma. The nearest equivalent English term for dharma can be innate law, which, however, does not express the full meaning of dharma. Since dharma is supreme, our ideal of the state has been dharma rajya. Our ideal for the state has been dharma rajya. Dharma rajya, not in the sense of Hindu dharma rajya, that he's not equating dharma with Hinduism here. The king is supposed to protect dharma. In olden times, at the coronation ceremony, the king used to recite 3 times. There is no authority above me. I am supreme. There is no authority which can punish me. He used to say this 3 times. Upon this, the Raj Purohit used to strike the king on his back with a staff, that is Rajdanda, with a sengol. He would strike his back with a sengol, saying, "No, you are not supreme. Dharma is supreme. You are subjected to the rule of dharma. You are not sovereign." The king used to turn around, the king used to run around the sacred fire, and the Purohit would follow him, striking with the sengol, with the Rajdhan. Thereby, the king was unambiguously told that he was subject to dharma and he was punishable if he violated the dharma. Can the people do what they please? It may be contended, as Prime Minister Modi contends, it may be contended that democracy means just that. They can do what they want. The people can do what they want. But in our country, even if people wish, they are not free to act contrary to dharma. So, since your question was about Raj Dharma, we have to ask ourselves, has Prime Minister Modi followed his Rajadharma in the democratic environment that we live in? You know, all that Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay has said is about the time when Rajas and Maharajas used to rule the country, and there was Rajabhishek. Now that symbol has been used. But what about the substance? The substance is that the Raja or the ruler, in this case the Prime Minister, has to follow the Dharma. Now his Dharma then today, as he himself said, his Dharma is Constitution. And the Constitution says the President is supreme. Vice President comes next. And he's not inviting them. It's not just a question of Neeluji just inviting them for the function. We have to see how Parliament has been functioning
But
in
Mr.
the past
Kulkarni,
9 years.
I'm really wondering, I mean, from what you just said, I'm wondering if the Prime Minister is totally confused about what he wants to do. He talks about modernity, then he brings in these religious symbols and symbols of monarchy, which make everyone feel that, oh, our country is going back. I don't know how many years back is he taking away the country. So is he confused about what he wants to really tell the people? Or is it something which he has a very clear idea in his mind and probably we can't understand? I really think about it at many times.
Eluji, there is no basis to think that he is confused. He wants it this way. And he wants his own followers and even his own ministerial colleagues to think that he's really the Raja. Yesterday, there was a tweet by none other than the Parliamentary Affairs Minister, Prahlad Joshi. The tweet was in Kannada, but I have translated it. And it says, the Raja ruling over India is doing Sashtang Namaskar to Sengol. He has described, showing that particular photograph, he has described Narendra Modi as the Raja of India. So they actually believe that he's the Raja, and yesterday was a coronation. So it's not a question of confusion. They actually believe.
But does it bring us to the question that is it an undeclared form of a presidential order which apparently Prime Minister Narendra Modi wants everyone to believe in?
You raised a very good question. Today we are not in the age of monarchy, so there is no coronation, there is no Rajyabhishek. Yet, this symbol, this Sengol, which was to have been said to have been passed on from Mountbatten to Nehru in the presence of Rajaji, there is not much evidence to show that yet. So that was meant to be at the time of transfer of power in 1947. But which transfer of power is taking place now? What transition of power is taking place now? So the only meaning that we can read into the fact that Sengol has been given such a high importance is that the kind of transition that they are implying is the transition from parliamentary democracy to an undeclared presidential system, where the Prime Minister is the effective president and the actual president is a rubber stamp.
And maybe that's a reason why the president and the vice president have just been sidelined totally from an important ceremony like this.
Exactly.
Another thing, I was reading one editorial in Samna today, and Mr. Kulkarni, they very clearly said that, yesterday's ceremony showed that Prime Minister Narendra Modi gives importance to superstitions. He gives importance to rituals, sidelining the knowledge, the power, the scientific temperament, which we used to see during the Nehruvian era or during the Vajpayee era or Dr. Manmohan Singh era. Do you agree with this, that those things have been completely sidestepped?
You see, I give more importance to substance than symbolism. And that is how it should be seen. Now, Sengol, it comes from the era of monarchy. Now, should it be used at the time of inauguration of the new parliament building with all the religious ceremony? That's debatable. But we should be more concerned about the substance. The substance is, even if we take the story of Sengol to be true, what does it say? It says that whosoever is the ruler, even in a democratic system, has to follow the law, has to follow Dharma, the righteous path. Now, we should judge, therefore, the government of the day against whether the path of Dharma in a democracy is being followed. Now here, Neeluji, we come across some very disturbing facts. In the last 9 years, Parliament has become more and more and more irrelevant. The building is great. There's a new building. very impressive in many ways. But what about the heart and soul of this new building?
But Mr. Kulkarni, yes, absolutely. But what do you expect out of a prime minister who doesn't seem to believe at all in constitutional propriety, in the constitutional norms? Can we expect that he's going to believe in the rajdharma?
No, this is precisely the question that the praja has to answer and think about. The 40 billion people and 40 million people that he, I'm sorry, 140 crore people that he mentioned, they all have to ask the people that we elect to the Lok Sabha and indirectly to the Rajya Sabha, are they performing their duty? And is the executive, the Prime Minister, his ministers, are they performing their duty? Now, as I was mentioning earlier, the record of the past 9 years shows that Parliament has hardly remained a temple of democracy. Parliament has hardly remained a platform for informed debate. There is hardly any debate at all. So many important bills are passed without a debate. Even the budget is passed without a debate. There is no permission for debating important issues before the nation. For example, the tension on India-China border has never been discussed in Parliament. As against this, please recall in 1962, Parliament used to discuss threadbare the tension on the border, the war, the implications, and the Prime Minister of the day, Nehru, was being questioned by all the opposition parties, and he allowed that debate to take place. Now, 9 years, nothing of the kind happening. Scandals in the corporate sector are not allowed to be debated in Parliament. 3 important bills, farmers' bills, when the government introduced ordinances, not discussed. Also, the first Parliament of India, 1952, used to sit 130 days in a year. Now that number has come down to 60.
Very true.
One more very important and a telling fact. Prime Minister of the day, Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru, used to sit regularly in Parliament in all the important debates, including question hour. As against this, Prime Minister Narendra Modi hardly ever sits in Parliament. He hardly ever answers questions of the opposition. So on the one hand, no respect is given to Parliament as a platform for debate. No respect is given to the voices of the opposition. And you're building a flashy new building. What does it mean?
Absolutely. But Mr. Kulkarni, does that bring us to the next question, and which is a very worrisome question, that is Prime Minister's intention very, very clear that Constitution perhaps is the biggest roadblock, no matter how much he would have sworn in by that Dharma Granth, as you said, in 2014. I still remember those visuals when the first time he was stepping onto the corridors of Parliament, he shed tears, he bowed down before the staircase. And 9 years down the line, that same Parliament building, he has no qualms about locking up that building and starting a new one on his own whims and fancies, if I may use that word.
You're absolutely right. Even though it is the task of the government of the day to build a new building, something as important as a new Parliament, the government should have discussed the matter with all the opposition parties. Yesterday, Sharad Pawarji made a very interesting comment. He said, I have been in Parliament for so many years. The government never consulted with us on what kind of new building we should have. So this government does not believe in consultation, does not believe in dialogue with opposition parties. But there is something more. If you listen to Prime Minister's speech yesterday, he gave absolutely no recognition to any former prime minister.
Yes.
He did not even take the names of the previous prime ministers, including Jawaharlal Nehru, the first prime minister, who actually laid the foundation, robust foundations for parliamentary democracy as prime minister for 17 long years. That was a golden period for India's parliamentary democracy. No name taken. Even Atal Bihari Vajpayee, he was forgotten by Narendra Modi. Indira Gandhi, forgotten. Rajiv Gandhi, forgotten. Morarji Desai, forgotten. Morarji Desai, who became prime minister after the defeat of Indira Gandhi during the emergency, and emergency was a fight for democracy. No recognition. In yesterday's speech, the prime minister did not even mention the contribution of opposition parties in a healthy democracy. No reference to it at all. In fact, the word debate did not even figure in his speech. And debate is the heart and soul of democracy, parliamentary democracy. And then he has given no recognition for the good work done by parliament, by various governments since 1947. All that he recounted yesterday was what has happened in the last 9 years. As if the real parliamentary democracy, the real parliament, real freedom of India started after 2014? Or what kind of perversion of history is it?
Absolutely. But Mr. Kulkarni,
rejecting our own history, our own post-independence history, and then making a big drama that, we have we have started a new era of Atmanirbharta, self-reliance. The first big thing that we have done that is not colonial, as if all the previous governments were lackeys of colonialism. What kind of messaging is this?
Right. But Mr. Kulkarni, I really shudder to think that coming monsoon session, when this new parliament building becomes functional, when you will have members of the opposition, the treasury benches all coming together, what is that democratic setup going to look like? Obviously, the symbolism was there, Modi ji with his scepter and all the rituals and everything, the inauguration is done. But what after this? What are we going to see from here on? I'm really wondering.
See, kind of a signal for what might come actually was seen in the last session of Parliament in the old building. When Narendra Modi, when he rose to speak, the entire treasury benches started chanting, Modi, 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 drowning out the voices of the opposition. Now that Parliament is going to convene in the new building, I'm afraid we are going to see more and more of this, because now Parliament is equated only with one person. You will recall that yesterday, even his senior ministerial colleagues got no recognition.
Yes.
This was not the case in Nehru's time. There's a very interesting photograph that's gone viral yesterday. It shows the first cabinet in which Pandit Nehru is sitting next to the president, Rajendra Prasad. And then there is Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, there is Jagjeevan Ram, Ambedkar, Syama Prasad Mukherjee, all the greats, all the legends are seen together. Yesterday, was there any other person belonging to the current setup, seen with Narendra Modi? He wants all the limelight only upon himself.
But Mr. Kulkarni, I'm wondering if you saw the visuals yesterday, it was the speaker who was waiting for the prime minister, to call him. Whereas it would have been the other way. The speaker's stature is above the prime minister. But yesterday, those visuals where we saw Prime Minister Narendra Modi, aap aa jaiye, that was the kind of messaging it was. Now, how does one take all this? How does one absorb this? And that is why I asked you this question, that what are the things really going to look like? Is it just going to be the new parliament building with one emperor and nobody else around? What will the opposition do now?
You asked a question to which I can only answer by quoting from Dr. Rajendra Prasad, our first president, and also who presided over the Constituent Assembly, which produced a constitution. So when India was formally declared a republic on 26th January 1950, in his speech, this is what Dr. Rajendra Prasad said, and it is really worth recalling, both by the people who elect members of parliament and also the treasury benches, the executive, and other parties in parliament. This is what he says. We have prepared a democratic constitution, but the successful working of democratic institutions requires in those who have to work them a willingness to respect the viewpoints of others. A willingness to respect the viewpoints of others. Capacity for compromise and accommodation. The first president, he's saying, not only to Nehru, but all the prime ministers coming posterity. He's saying willingness to respect the viewpoints of others, capacity for compromise and accommodation. Many things which cannot be written in a constitution are done by conventions. Many things that cannot be written in a constitution are done by conventions. Let me hope that we shall show these capacities and develop these conventions. Now, this is what our forefathers expected. Those who wrote the constitution, those who debated the constitution, those who laid the foundation for our parliamentary democracy, they all expected the government and the opposition to debate together, respect each other, respect dissenting voices, and come to accommodation and compromise. Now, where is that spirit? It's all gone. It's evaporated. Everything, as you rightly said, is only upon one person. Parliament today has become synonymous with Prime Minister.
Very strong words, and I'm just wondering how the days would be like. But one question regarding the opposition before I wind up the program, Mr. Kulkarni, is that opposition boycotted. And a large number of people felt that they should not have gone for a boycott. At least they could have attended the ceremony. But with the opposition leaders I spoke to, they said that no, we have, we are fighting for upholding our constitution. And history will remember us for fighting for the constitution. So we have all the right to express our dissent. We have all the right to boycott the inauguration. What do you really feel on this?
In fact, in my article yesterday in the Quint, I have said that undoubtedly the Prime Minister has bypassed and violated the constitution, but the opposition should not have boycotted the inaugural ceremony. The opposition should have registered its protest, legitimate protest, in some other way and participated in the function. Because after all, the occasion is solemn, is historic. Parliament belongs to the nation. Parliament belongs to all the people of India and all the political parties of India. It doesn't belong to one party, one person. So the opposition has a rightful place in Parliament. It should have been in Parliament at the time of inauguration ceremony. Having said this, we cannot disregard the fact that the Prime Minister has consistently maligned the opposition, both within Parliament and, of course, without. He loses no opportunity to berate previous governments. He loses no opportunity to say that nothing happened since 1947 and all the good things have been happening in the last 9 years in the election speeches. And of course, everything that he does is for winning elections, including yesterday's speech. In all the election speeches, he disrespects and maligns the opposition in a way that no previous prime minister has done. So this cannot be disregarded. Having said this, I would still underscore the fact that the opposition should have participated in the function yesterday.
One more question, which really is echoing from what you just said, that the monsoon session, when the parliament session becomes, the parliament becomes functional, what kind of a moral fiber will the opposition have while attending? Will they not think twice that, that sense of belongingness which was there in the old parliament building, somewhere down the line, that feeling is lost? And how would they really attend that session? I'm just wondering, will they not think twice that, look, this building is not ours? That feeling will be there. Oh, because like Mahua Moitra mentioned in one of the tweets that this inauguration of the parliament building is almost like Modi ji's Greh Pravesh or a housewarming party. And many people are writing on the Twitter that it's like the grand palace which is being opened up for Modi ji. So with what kind of a feeling will opposition really join the coming sessions?
So it is the responsibility of the government of the day to make everyone feel that they belong to parliament. Nobody should feel that we have no place in this.
Right.
And that's very unhealthy for democracy. If you look at the old building, a grand building, even though it was built during the British Raj, it had a certain majesty of its own. And it was built by Indian hands. And great debates have taken place. Great decisions have been taken in that old building. We cannot erase that past altogether and believe that real parliamentary democracy has begun. 28th May 2023. So therefore, I still urge as a citizen who does not belong to any party, I urge, and like me, I'm sure that millions and millions of people of India, they urge the Prime Minister that please treat Parliament as an institution that belongs to all, not just to you. It belongs even to parties that have only 2 members. It belongs to opposition parties that criticize your policies because it is their right to criticize your policy.
Right.
Just as it is also their right to support the government whenever the government does something good. So those conventions, that spirit of democracy has to be protected. And one can only hope that since the Prime Minister says that the Constitution is his Dharma Granth, he follows that Dharma Granth, that scripture. He understands the true meaning of Rajdhan, as I mentioned while quoting from Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. And it can only be a hope that things change when the new session begins.
Of course, we are all hoping that this new building at least sustains the old ethos, the old culture, and the parliamentary ideals, of course. Thank you so much, Mr. Kulkarni. It was really a wonderful conversation with you, and we hope to see you more often on Federal. Thank you, sir, so much. And one appeal to viewers, thank you, sir. And one appeal to the viewers who are watching this interview with Mr. Sudheendra Kulkarni, send us your feedback, subscribe to our channel, and stay tuned to the Federal. Thank you.
Subscribe to the Federal's YouTube page for more news and updates.